I feel like I'm the only person in America that's not being gaslit by Ace. Like, I don't get it. It's like a lot of people forgot how he acted, but because he dropped his tone and gave y'all this sympathy look like, oh, I'm not good enough for her. Now y'all completely forgot how he was acting, but we'll get to it. But shout out to y'all. As always, y'all showed so much love on this video as well on TikTok. On TikTok, I done got on the For You page. That thing is blowing up over there. So if you haven't already, go follow my TikTok. It's in the bio. Go like it. Go follow. Thumbs up the video. Drop comments down below. Also, to the Huda fans, yeah. Y'all are out of control. I got called an Nigger today. Got called racist. Watch your mouth when you're in my comments. I'm not the one for that shit. Like, I'm going to tell you that right now. I'm not the one for that. I don't go for that. So you come down here talking to me like you don't have sense, you're going to get what you're asking for, and you're going to get blocked. So if you really care to come down here and talk to me about what I got to say, if you wanted to be down there, you talk to me like you got some sense, because I'm not one for that bullshit. I'm not. I will block you immediately. I'll say what I got to say, and then I'm going to block you, and then you won't even get a chance to respond. But watch what you say, because if y'all can't handle, if you're not grown enough and mature enough to handle a difference of opinion without acting a fool and being disrespectful, then you're going to get that. But, yeah, thumbs up the video, subscribe if you're new, and let's go. All right, so we get back to where we left off, which was the boys essentially recapping the challenge. And Ace and Nick, they mentioned how Taylor pretty much didn't kiss Olandria. I don't know what I wrote. I guess I wrote that right. But he ends up stating that he didn't kiss her out of respect for Clarke after what Olandria essentially had did. And I'm like, you didn't kiss her because you didn't want to kiss her. Like, let's keep it real. Stop lying. Like, Taylor, this episode pissed me off even more. Like, that's why I want him gone, but we'll get to it. But Pepe, he ends up stating, like, essentially you were turned on by it clearly because your heart rate went up. And he was like, yeah, Olandria raised my heart rate the highest. But Bryan, he's over there telling the Casa boys, because the main Villa boys, they're over there together. The Casa boys are over together. But Bryan's telling the Casa boys that he essentially wanted to kiss Jaden, and he enjoyed it, and he wants to talk to her. It's funny because we didn't even get to see that conversation today. We'll see if it happens tomorrow. But he then says that he just didn't want to admit it, but essentially him and Andreina, their conversations have been boring. Like, it might have just been physical. But TJ then asked the boys over with the Villa boys, he asked the Villa boys who did they feel did the most in the challenge. And they all said Huda. I need everybody that sat here and tried to play and act like I was wrong. Everybody that agreed with me, Chelley was wrong for feeling like Huda did too much. Every single guy in that villa said it. Every single one. Every single one. So everybody that's out here sending her death threats and stuff, like, y'all look like fools. Like, y'all do too much behind this show. Too much. But Taylor ends up asking Ace how he felt about it, and he says he had mixed emotions. And TJ's like, do you think that she did too much? Like, was she OD with it? And Ace says, yeah, but I saw Chelley's face and she was pissed. But she doubled back with Chris. So you're not taking accountability for any of your actions. So that's my whole point in stating this. I'm going to elaborate later on. But Ace does not hold himself accountable when he wants to hold other people accountable. Y'all forgot that. Clearly, y'all got gaslit this whole episode because a lot of the social media is like, oh my God, I agree with Ace. Yes, he can make valid points, but if he doesn't, and that goes back to the Huda stuff. You can state certain things, but if you don't stand on it yourself, you have no leg to stand on. I don't believe anything you're stating because you don't move that way either. So why would I be upset with somebody else moving that way when you don't do it either? You want that from them, but you can't even give that to them. But we'll get to it. But he says that, and TJ ends up asking him that. Nick and Ace, they end up stating that it comes to a point where it's too much in a challenge now. He says essentially like I was thrown up. Nigga saying I was thrown off by Elan, and it pissed me off. And he says that I wanted to essentially get gloves and fight Elan. I said it's just funny how Nick and Ace, who acted a plumb fool in all them challenges prior to having competition in the house, are now having an issue with the challenges because they now have competition in the house. Like, do y'all not see how it works? Like, it's crazy to me. But it's funny too because Nick's energy in this scene about Elan was not the same when he actually had a conversation with him. He talking about he wanted to fight him and he don't fuck with him and yada yada yada, but we'll get to that. But Nick then says that Elan needs to stay in his lane because I ain't fucking with you. I don't care about you. I don't want to see you. I don't want to hear from you. I said, you're bothered. Big mad. But Elan, he's over there talking to the Casa boys, laughing about Nick pretty much getting tight about Elan stating, like, this is your turn to watch me, as he went and tongued down Cierra. But Elan says, I'm not apologizing for it. But the Casa boys are pretty much encouraging him to keep applying that pressure. And he feels like, based off of Cierra's reaction to it, he feels like he might have a chance. But the Casa girls, they're upstairs, funny as well. The Casa girls are together, and then the Villa girls are together. But they're upstairs talking about how they were feeling for Clarke because Olandria did not hold back when it came to Taylor. She eventually states that, like, Taylor initiated a lot with me, and he really didn't do too much with Olandria. Like, Olandria was the one that initiated a lot of that in the game, so she's not too bothered by it. That's what she says then. We'll talk about it later. But Jaden then tells her, essentially, you handled it very well. Gracyn pretty much echoes those same sentiments. But as they're talking, we see Olandria and Taylor getting ready to have a conversation. I said, don't piss me off. Do not piss me off. But here we go. Taylor, he then tells her that Elan and her did their big one. And she was sitting there like, yeah, I can tell, like, your reaction to me, obviously. But he then says, like, yeah, you got me. Like, for me, I was just trying to be respectful to Clarke, which is why I didn't kiss you, even though I wanted to. Taylor, who the fuck do you think you fooling? And then this is where I go to, like, this is why I don't like him. He likes to play games, too. Like how he said he don't like, a couple episodes ago, I don't like having two women in the house coming for me, essentially. But yet you sitting here playing these games with Olandria. You sitting here trying to get back in her head. And Olandria, you better not pay any mind to any of this shit, because you already know how he feels. He done showed you numerous times now. Don't let that... Words don't mean shit when the actions talk louder than the words. Let's keep it all the way above. But he then states that, and she ends up stating that she could tell that he wanted to kiss her. Don't know how you could tell, because he barely even touched you. Like, come on. But he then says that he wanted to let her know where he was coming from. And Olandria ends up stating that she was confused because there's no way, like, in 2 to 3 days you can make that decision. So what happened? It wasn't the 2 to 3 days, Olandria. He knew that probably 2 to 3 days into being on the show that he did not want to be with you. He just finally got somebody in there that actually took his mind off of you because they actually were interested in him as well. The other girls, the other bombshells that came in here, they were not interested in him, so he didn't have a chance to actually leave you. He now has somebody in here that he actually seemingly has a connection with, but she also mutually likes him as well, to the point where he can now commit to her. That's what happened. But he then says that his head said to pick Olandria, and he says his gut said Clarke. So again, your gut means your actual feeling. Your head means, okay, I'm thinking game. He was literally debating on if I should go with what I actually feel, which is Clarke, or I should go with my game, getting the money, because I know Olandria is a favorite, and choosing her. So he finally actually made a decision that was going with his gut, which would make people respect you. But now you're trying to play with the game again. That's clear. Which you're never going to get respect for that. But Taylor then says that Clarke gave him a feeling that he's never really felt before. Olandria states that she can't do anything but respect that. But she then tells us that she don't know. Like, my feelings essentially don't go away overnight, but the fact that he's so unsure about his decisions bothers her. And she was like, why would I keep investing my time into you if you threw it away over a couple of days? Again, it wasn't over a couple of days. It was because he did not like you, and he's been known that he did not like you. We then get a scene of Huda with Chris, and she's over there telling him that Chelley is mad because she had pulled Ace to the side, and she thinks that Chelley thinks that it was essentially too much and it was extra. And I'm like, here you go, never holding yourself accountable. Always the victim. She's always the victim. But Kristen tells her essentially, like, you need to apologize, just reassure her that it wasn't like that, even though it was. Let's keep it real. Because the reason why it was is because of the way that she acted. At the end of the episode last night, she was giddy about the fact that she got Ace's heart rate up. She wanted to do that. Some people are going to say it's in the guise of the game, but no, it's not. That smirk that she had, she was excited because that's what she wanted to do. Like, let's keep it all the way for real. But he then says, like, if she's open, she shouldn't feel like that pretty much about her doing what she did with Ace. And if she wants to act that way, then let her do it. And it's just like, you could say that, but when you think about it from Chelley's perspective, it's not the act of that. It's the fact that you were supposed to be her friend and you did too much. You did the most. Like, her kissing him in the challenge, I don't think Chelley would have been upset with that. It's just the whole grinding and stuff. Like how she got up and saw you pretty much getting that thing bounced up on his thing. And then you turned around and hit the reverse cowgirl, and it pretty much showed. It didn't show all the way because they cut it, but we're not stupid. We know you sat on that nigga's face. Like, let's keep it real. We know it was a lot worse than what was shown. So that's why she's mad. That's why she's mad. But we'll get to Chelley too, because Chelley pissed me off too, but we'll get to her in a minute. But Huda then says, but that's my girl. I just don't want her to be upset with me because I'm not that type of person. You are. People gonna sit. Your defenders are they're gonna try and make us think that you're not. They're gonna gaslight us, just like you're trying to gaslight us. But I don't forget shit. You did the same shit with Hannah. So if it happens twice, you're likely that person. You did the same shit with Hannah with Pepe. You chose Pepe in the challenge and then tried to act like you didn't know that there was a kiss at the end of the challenge after you watch every single couple do the same shit. So you did it with her, who you were supposed to be best friends with. She was the one girl that was blowing smoke up your ass, telling you everything that you wanted to hear, not the truth. But you went and snaked her. And then we all know and we're suspicious of the fact that they sent Hannah home so that you can get a chance to be with Pepe. But you didn't even do that. And now you did the same shit to Chelley. Let's keep it all the way a buck. You're not as innocent as you want us to believe. But Kristen tells her that you had 3 to 4 weeks to get to know Ace. And if you really wanted that, you would get that. She was obsessed with Jeremiah for 3 to 4 weeks. That's why she didn't do it. Like, come on. But Chris is still feeding her bullshit, giving her real advice, not giving her real advice in this moment. But she's crying now in her confessional, stating that she was only thinking about herself when she should have been thinking about other people. Yeah. But Huda then goes to try and pull Chelley for a chat. And Chelley gets up. They go walking over. And Chelley is sitting there thinking as she's walking. And she says, you know what? I think tomorrow we can have a chat because I don't want to have it tonight. Which essentially Chelley in this moment realized that, okay, my emotions are high. If I have this conversation with you right now, I might snap out on you. I might end up acting a fool. And as we all know, with her being a black woman, rules are just different with black women. When it comes to everybody else, they can act a fool and get praised for it. Black women don't have that luxury. So I'm glad Chelley thought, okay, let me not do this now. Because I could literally give you what you want. And then you're going to sit here and cry. And then I'm going to be getting what I'm getting right now online. So I was happy she didn't do it. Me personally, I would have cussed her smooth the fuck out, honestly. But Huda, she then says, like, I just don't want you to go to bed angry. And Chelley pretty much tells us in her confessionals, I never kissed Jeremiah because I already knew how you felt about him. Out of respect for you, I didn't do it because of how hard you fuck with him. And you can't reciprocate that when it comes to other people. And she says, essentially, like, the way that you've been sitting here trying to downplay it as it's just a challenge, that pisses me off because that's how you was tripping out about everybody else doing shit in the challenge. So Chelley, like I said, I still see Chelley's side when it comes to Huda. But we'll get to Chelley when it comes to Ace because I don't see her side there. But Elan is talking to Casa, the Casa boys again, and Nick goes over to pull him for a chat. I said, but didn't you say you didn't want to hear or talk to him? But here you go. So they go and sit down, and Nick is sitting there being fake, asking him, like, how are you doing? The energy you had over there with them boys, you should have never been asking him how he was doing. You should have said all of what you said to them, to him. You shouldn't have been asking him any questions. But Elan says, I know essentially, Nick says, I know that you were essentially coupled up with Cierra and it pissed me off. But I was surprised that you still brought her to your heart pretty much in the challenge. And he says, like, I support doing things in the challenge and whatnot, but I feel like with me and Cierra's relationship being so strong, that type of shit put me off. But his energy was different. He wasn't talking like he was talking over there with the boys. They big tough shit. He was not doing it. But Elan then says, like, Cierra said that she would be open to exploring connections, essentially, which she did. But Nick then says, like, when he made Cierra breakfast, Elan had told him essentially that he wasn't going to make her breakfast, but he then turned around and did it, and he felt disrespected. I said, where was this energy whenever you was out here taking all them coffees that TJ had made for Cierra and throwing them out? Like, Nick got selective outrage. He knows who to pick it with. Like, Elan gives off an innocent vibe. TJ, I don't think TJ is pumping any fear in anybody's heart, but I feel like he knows who to try it with, honestly. But Elan then says, like, I mean, I did it to let her know essentially that I'm still interested in her. It has nothing to do with me essentially trying to snake you. But Nick then tells us that he was upset, but at the end of the day, people are going to act like shit is sweet when they're pressed. You was not pressing him. Nick got this false sense of self. He in there trying to act like he really in there pressing shit. You was not pressing him. You was not. But we then get Ace and Chelley at the fire pit. He ends up asking her how she feels, which this pisses me off because Ace always starts off their conversations asking how she feels. Why don't you address how you acted the way you did? Let's start there. But he ends up asking her that. She says she's annoyed and aggravated. He says, with who? She says, with Huda, to be honest. And then she says, I'm not upset with you. I said, Chelley, absolutely not. No, ma'am. No, ma'am. You're absolutely correct to want to be upset with Huda, but you should also be upset with Ace. Because Ace it's an equal playing field. Like I said last night, Huda was wrong, but Ace was just as wrong. Truly, because Ace is the one that you're building this connection with. Ace was too involved in that. He was grabbing her ass. He was disrespectful. He was, even though she was grinding up on him, he was placing it. It was an effort on both ends. So, just as she was grinding, he was sitting there taking it. He enjoyed it, the way he was sitting there laughing about it. Like, he enjoyed every bit of that. So, for you to not be upset when he pretty much made you look stupid, I just don't get it, Chelley. I don't understand how you're not mad at him. But he then sits there and says it might have gave off that I was enjoying it, but it's a challenge. And I thought it was crazy because I felt a little hurt because you doubled back and it was unnecessary and it pissed me off. So it's like the double standard. And this is where y'all was getting gaslit. If Ace didn't move the way Ace moves, and when I say moves, how he did prior to Chris coming in, did y'all forget how he had Chelley on the ropes? Like, he had every pick of the litter. Every time a woman came in, he put her on the back burner. Did y'all forget how he chose Amaya after pretty much telling Chelley, like, we got this bond, we got this connection? Y'all thought that he was going to pick Chelley that night. I knew he wasn't because I already peeped his game. Y'all thought that he was going to pick her. She did too. And she got egg on her face for the second time. He pulled the same shit with Iris too. Even though she eventually didn't want to get coupled up with him, but didn't get the chance to get coupled up with him because America voted her to be with Jeremiah. But he would have definitely entertained Iris over Chelley too when he was still nurturing that connection with Chelley. But now that Chelley actually has an option that she actually is connected to and actually is building a connection with, now she's in the wrong and Ace is right. No. Like I said, if Ace didn't do what he did, he would 100% be valid. 100%. But he did what he did. She's doing what she's doing. I don't see anything wrong with it. Honestly, I don't. But he then says that's a hard thing for him to watch because he sent Coco home because he thought that him and Chelley's connection was stronger, and then she comes back still wanting to explore. I said, Chelley should have brought up the shit with Amaya. Like, that would have been the perfect time for her to do it. Because how you going to sit here and throw it back in her face because you made that decision? You made that decision. You made the decision to send Coco home. You did that. Don't throw that back on her. Like, you sitting here trying to make it seem like, oh, well, I sent her home when I could have kept her here because you're not really giving me the energy that I want you to give me. You're mad now because you can't control Chelley. That's just really what it is. Like, you had her in your back pocket and you knew every time that you did something with these girls, whenever you were done with your fun, you was going to be able to have her back there. Now that she has another person in here that is equally as interested in her as she is in them, actually, it's not even equal because he was more interested in her than she is in him. You now feel that competition and now you sweating. That's what that is. That's what that is. But she then says, I'm glad that you told me this, but my intention wasn't to double down on what I was feeling with Chris. This is just somebody that I made a connection with. And if I was going to kiss somebody in a challenge, again, that would have been the person. But she then asked him, like, what are you thinking? And he says, it's hard for me to believe what you just said. Like, I believe that you're an intentional person. And that seems like it was intentional to me. And she then tells us what she should have told him. I just saw you sitting here tonguing down every single person. By the time I look back, you were still tonguing them down. That's why I went over there to did it and did what I did. I'm like, why didn't you say that to him? Like, why did you not say that to him? And in this moment, I took it as Ace pretty much trying to find his out to go ahead and explore Huda. We'll see if it happens. It didn't happen this episode, but we'll get to it. So we then see Huda sitting down with Olandria. They're at the island, and Olandria is eating. It's awkward silence at first, but Huda then asks her, am I a terrible person? Olandria says, I wouldn't say you're a terrible person, but you did a little bit too much. And then she gets up. And as she gets up, Huda starts crying. Here we go with the victim tears. But Amaya comes down there, and Amaya is now sitting there pretty much asking her about the conversation. Did you and Chelley have the conversation? And she was like, no, we didn't talk. Amaya says she didn't want to talk to you. Huda shakes her head no. I said, always the victim. She made it seem like Chelley pretty much turned her down because she just did not want to talk to her. She could have told her what Chelley said. She just didn't want to talk to me right now because it's in the heat of the moment. But no, Huda always got to be the victim. Always got to be the victim. But Amaya ends up accidentally throwing water on her, and that cracked me it cracked me up. But Huda said, I deserved it. You did. But nighttime, Chelley's telling the girls about how Ace was upset about her pretty much kissing Chris twice. when she said that she wanted to explore it or whatever. And Cierra was like, essentially, it's given like, I don't know why you're mad. So now that you're mad, I'm going to be mad too, which is exactly what it gave me. But Taylor is in there in the bed telling Clarke how beautiful she is. I said again, giving compliments that he never did with Olandria. Like, it just makes so much sense. So the next morning, Amaya is pretty much waking everybody up with the good energy. We got Olandria telling Chelley like that shit shouldn't have happened last night. Ace ends up bringing Chelley breakfast and flowers. Chris brings Chelley and Huda breakfast, but Chris ends up giving Chelley hers first, and Huda was looking bothered. We'll talk about that breakfast in a minute because she was bothered, and she was sitting there watching Chelley eating hers. But Chris, he's down there telling Elan how bad Amaya is. Love that Amaya is finally getting the attention that she deserves. But Elan says, yes, she is, and I want to talk to her. I said, yes, she got some options. So we get Clarke, Amaya, and Gracyn. They're pretty much asking Huda if she and Chelley have even talked yet today. And she says no. She says, I'm just going to wait for her to come pull me to talk because essentially I tried to pull her and she doesn't want to talk to me. Again, it's not that she doesn't want to talk to you. She just wants to at least calm herself down before she actually has a conversation. But Huda then says, like, I don't hate her. I actually love her. I'm just not trying to take her man. I said, is that your subconscious speaking? But she then says that they both were interested in the same guy in Casa, a.k.a. Chris, and she brought him back. And she thinks that Chelley thinks that that's her trying to keep stealing her man, essentially. And she says that's not how she moves. Again, like I said earlier, ask Hannah. Hannah would say otherwise because that's your subconscious speaking. She knows it. But she then mentions how Chris had brought Chelley 2 pancakes and a flower. And she only got 1 pancake and no flour. I said, here we go. Where's this growth that y'all claim that Huda had? Because this is the same shit that she normally would be doing with Jeremiah. Like, let's keep it all the way for real. And the whole thing is, the difference between Huda and Chelley, where Chelley gets more attention, I guess. Chelley knows how to have a conversation. Huda leads with sex. And that goes back to what I state with y'all. When it comes to a man, why buy the cow when you can get the milk for free? The woman that you want and want to pursue is the one that makes it a little bit harder for you. Because if you really like her, you're going to put in the effort to do it. Depending on how much you get back, it might make you stop. But the one that's easy, you're going to hit it and scram. So essentially, that's what it is. That's what it is. But she then tells us how she's irritated because, like, why is he doing the most in front of me, in my face? That's kind of how you was doing the same thing to Chelley last night. Kind of how you did the same thing with Hannah. Like, again, I'm going to continue to remind y'all of the hypocrisy. Like, it just makes no sense to me. But Chelley, Cierra, and Olandria, they're having a conversation, and Cierra ends up getting a text about her and Nick going on a date. All the trios are excited. When I say the trios, Cierra, Chelley, and Olandria, and then Nick, Ace, and Taylor, they're all excited. They head off to go get ready. Sierra's nervous. The cast eventually ends up sending them off to their date. So their date is them riding bikes up to a mountaintop where they have a nice view and they have a picnic. It is a very cute date. So they're sitting down talking, and he's talking about how he was having the best night until Elan had pulled her and he got pissed. So she ends up asking, like, was that triggering to you? Like, did it trigger your ego or did it trigger you because you have feelings for me? That was a very good question. Me personally, I feel like it triggered his ego. Honestly. And I believe it because of what happened in this, but we'll get to it in a minute. But he then says, like, it's a protective feeling that he had. Yeah, protecting your ego. That's what that is. But she then talks about her trust issues that she had in previous relationships, and that kiss with Olandria made her uncomfortable to think about after marinating on it. And she says, it just makes me wonder if y'all really needed to take it that far. That's a valid concern, honestly. But he then says, like, really? And she's like, yeah, like, how would it make you feel if it was me and Taylor doing that? I'm glad she threw that hypothetical back at him. Because, I mean, I get where she's coming from. Granted, on the show, it's not Friendship Island. But, I mean, I can understand how she would feel. Like, somebody that you super close with after y'all done fucked. I mean, I get it. I get it. But, he then says, essentially, it just gave me more clarity about our relationship and where I wanted to be with you. Good way to slither out of it. But we get Huda talking to Chris, and she's thanking him for breakfast. She starts it off thanking him so she can get to addressing. She says, but you gave Chelley two pancakes and gave me a flower, and gave her a flower as well, and only gave me 1 pancake and nothing. I said, here we go with the childish shit. He apologizes, But she then says it makes me feel like I'm a side hoe because he's showing favoritism and she don't like that. I say, here we go. Here we go. But he then says that she says that she's been having a hard day and it just added to it and I just feel like I'm out of it, but essentially it is my fault. First time she acknowledged, yes, that's why. But he then says, yes, is there anything that I can do, anything from me that you need to help you out? And she starts crying while stating no. But she then says she essentially wants to fix things with Chelley because she's going to give her space. I just find it interesting how she's always crying when it comes to this. Honestly, because when it came to Hannah, she had no emotions at all. At all. But she wants to play the victim in these situations. She did the same thing with Olandria. But he then says no. Well, no, she ends up asking him if she was ugly, would it mean something? Would it be anything different? Would it make it better if she was ugly doing what she did with Ace? He was like, no. Like, I mean, it's just sexy and you chose somebody that she was interested in. I'm like, what the hell? Like, why are you thinking this type of shit? Like, go home. But he then tells her, essentially, you need to apologize for making her feel that way, even though you did nothing wrong. In the guise of the show and the game, she did nothing wrong. In the guise of what Huda would actually want from other people when it comes to her and her people that she's interested in, she was wrong. She was wrong in that instant. So it's just like it's a hard pill. It's a hard pill to swallow because when you set those standards for everybody else and you don't stand by it, you get this. Because when you think about it, was Huda wrong for doing what she did in the challenge in the guise of Love Island? No. But when you do what you do, when other people did it to somebody that you was interested in and the way you acted the way you did, you're wrong. You're wrong. I don't understand why it's so hard for people to understand it. And it's been like that all day. All day in my comments on YouTube and in TikTok. It's wild to me how nobody's understanding it. But Kristen tells her it's clear that the person he tells us that it's clear that the person that he wants to get to know is Chelley. I said, so Huda is the back burner. She's the second option. But he says, essentially, I'm going to have to figure it out because my connection with Huda is getting stronger. We'll talk about them in a minute because I was like, huh? But towards the end, I was kind of shocked with what I was seeing, but we'll get to it. But Nick and Cierra, they're talking about Nick's intentions coming into the show. He was saying that he essentially wanted to have fun, but he came in here and he's happy with what he's found. She mentions how once she had sex with him, she knew essentially she didn't want to pretty much get to know anybody else, obviously. Like, most women typically, if they allow themselves to have sex with somebody, they want to be serious. And they start giving each other compliments about how much they enjoy each other. They talk about the outside world, and Nick eventually ends up asking her if she wants to close off. Me personally, I feel like this was his way of shutting Elan out of getting a chance to try and build a connection with Cierra. That's how I feel. She accepts it, they close off. So we get Chelley and Olandria upstairs talking, and Olandria is talking about how she's back to exploring. I'm like, good. Leave Taylor where he's at. So she talks about how she wants to give Zach another go. I'm like, good, because y'all actually had a good connection. Like, I do feel like that was something that she should explore. But Shelley's in full support of it because she's like, I mean, he did choose you in the recoupling, and y'all did have good conversations. And Olandria's like, yeah, we had a lot in common as well, and I enjoyed it. But Chelley says, as long as both of y'all are open, I'm okay with it. So Olandria then tells us that she's not gonna just explore Taylor. She's gonna explore everybody else. I said, you're not gonna explore Taylor. Period. That's what you should have said. Take Taylor out of the equation. There's no reason why you should even be trying to explore him. But Ace then comes up to go pull Chelley to Soul Ties to have a conversation. Olandria goes back downstairs. So he ends up asking her again, where's your mind at? Why don't you tell her where your mind is? Start there. But this is where y'all got gaslit. I saw what he was doing. But she then says, like, there's a line that needs to be drawn because I feel like it's disrespectful. And she then says that her and Ace need to have a conversation about boundaries and nobody needs to have 10-minute makeout sessions, like sensual makeout sessions. And she says, yes, I kissed Chris, but I didn't go all in. Like, it was for a little bit, and then I went back a second time because I saw that you were still going in. Chelley, you went in. Like, let's keep it real there. You went in just as much. She did stick that leg up and they was going at it, but like, you went into, it was on some tit for tat shit, pretty much what she just confirmed. But again, I still see what Ace is doing. That's the thing. We'll get to it. But she states that, and she ends up stating essentially you need to use your better judgment when it comes to crossing lines and the boundaries and whatever. And he says, well, that doesn't make you right either. She then says, I'm not saying that. He says, well, you kind of are because you're not taking ownership of it. Nigga, when have you took ownership for what you did? You put all that shit on Huda when you were equally to blame. If anything, you're more so the issue because you and Chelley are the ones that are actually building a connection to actually make it official. Chelley's not fucking Huda. Chelley's not trying to be in a relationship with Huda. She's trying to be in a relationship with you. You knew what you was doing and you knew how it would make Chelley feel, which is why you were sitting there laughing. Like, come on. But he then says that when it comes to the close off conversation, essentially we need to start talking about that. He says, I don't know how you can feel some type of way about me kissing people knowing that it doesn't mean shit, but you're going to actually form a connection with somebody and then kiss them in a challenge. First of all, how does she know that it doesn't mean shit when you've literally done that so many times, and you played in her face? How does she know that that doesn't mean anything? Like, I don't get Ace. I don't get him. He's a gaslighter. But she then says, like, you wanted us to be more open to explore. And I said, okay, well, then I'm going to do that too. And now that I am, you're not going to compare me having a conversation with somebody to you tonguing everybody down in them challenges. I agree with her. Like, you can't get mad at her for doing what you said that you were going to do. You just thought that she was just going to sit there and wait for you. And now that she's not and she's actually getting to know other people, now it's a problem. Like, be for real. But he then says, like, you're doing the same thing too. Yeah, because you made it that way. Why would she sit here and wait for you when you want to go out here and have your fun? You're only mad now because you actually have competition in the show now. And you're threatened by it. You're threatened by it. You saw that chemistry that they had. That's just really what it is. But he then says that, and she's like, I mean, I'm talking. I'm literally just talking. But Ace is in his confessionals. This is where y'all got gaslit. He strategically is lowering that voice, lowering that tone, trying to get sympathy, talking about, I feel like I'm just not being heard. I don't feel like I'm being understood. I feel like we're taking 4 steps back and we're just not finding common ground. He then tells her we're essentially not in a place to close up. I said, go ahead and just go explore Huda. Because we know that's what you really want to do. We know. But we get Chris and Amaya. They're having a conversation. He asks her how she's feeling about Zach. And she pretty much states, like, I feel like his priorities are to literally build friendships in here. Like, he has not even put me for a chat at all. I feel like he's more focused on that, and that's making me question his intentions. I was like, I'm glad she said it, because I've been questioning it every single day. Y'all know, every single episode, there's certain things that he does that makes me question if he's really serious about her. And this right here proves it. But Zach, he's over there with Elan, because Elan goes over there and tells him what he just overheard from Chris and Amaya's conversation. And I'm like, I was mad because I'm like, what if he goes over here and literally does it just because you told him to? But Ace and Taylor, but this all proves that everybody essentially, what we've all been stating online, there's no solid couple here. Even though Nick and Cierra closed off, they're not as solid as the producers want it to be. But we get Ace and Taylor, they're having a conversation, and Ace is now still questioning if he made the wrong decision sending Coco home because he's not as confident and feeling confident about Chelley now. I said, it's funny because now you are now on the other end. You played that game with her and now she's playing it with you. And now you don't like how it feels. It's uncomfortable. But he then says, like, he feels some type of way about her trying to form connections outside of the connections that, I don't know what I wrote, but bringing it into the challenge, essentially. She's making connections and then she's bringing that energy into the challenge. I'm like, you playing games, but you want to get mad at her. Like, I just don't get it. But he then tells us that he's not enough for Chelley. Again, with the sympathetic tactic that he's doing in his confessionals. The low tones, the looking down, the puppy dog face. Ace, I'm not buying it. I'm sorry. I'm not. I see you're acting. But Taylor, he then asks, like, what is your plan moving forward? And Ace says, I mean, I don't know at this point. I know. You're going to slide in on Huda. You're going to slide in on her. But Taylor then says, like, this is the hardest part. Essentially, whenever y'all get over it, y'all going to be all right. This is also, I feel like it could be Ace's plan, too. Like, they had, like, a good, and then they went up, and then they went down, and then they went back up, and now they're down, and then he thinks it's going to be their trajectory to win. No, it's not happening. But we get Bryan and Elan. They're talking, and Elan's talking about how his intentions are fully set on Cierra, but he hasn't had a chance to really talk to her since being back. Bryan keeps it real with him. He said, I'm going to be brutally honest with you right now. I think the last thing she's thinking about is making connections with anybody else. She's actually on a date right now. Do you think she's thinking about you? I'm glad he said that shit because it's true. But Elan then tells us essentially he feels like he's being ghosted or whatever, but he's essentially having to watch it. So it's not like he's really being ghosted because he can actually see it. But Bryan ends up stating, like, I would hate for you to keep putting energy towards something that is just not really there for you. And it's just funny. As they're having this conversation, here comes Cierra and Nick. I think that was not convenient. I just don't think it was. But everybody goes to greet him, and Elan's watching him return. And he's like, it just felt like a gut punch because I'm literally talking about this as they're coming in. But Cierra, she goes over to fill the girls in. Nick fills the guys in. Essentially, they're talking about the date or whatever, and they essentially tell them that they are officially closed off. Everybody's screaming, yeah, okay, who cares? But Ace is sitting there talking about, damn, I wish that was me. Yeah, I bet you do. I bet you do, because now you see them as competition. Like, they're the first ones to close off, so now you like, oh, shit, now I got work. But Elan and Amaya, they're at the dock. They're pretty much getting to know each other. Essentially, he tells her that he's been wanting to pull her for a chat. I'm like, is it because you now don't have Cierra right now? But I'm like, okay, whatever. Get to know Amaya. But Amaya, being the good, energetic person that she is, she's giving him the good energy. They're getting to know each other. They're talking about families and whatever. She's engaged. He's engaged in the conversation. We'll see what happens there. Essentially, everybody's now getting ready for the night. Elan ends up telling Austin that knowing that Cierra is essentially closed off with Nick now, that's what I needed to put my energy towards, getting to know other people. But Zach, he's telling, he's talking about, pretty much as the day goes on, him and Amaya get more and more sour. And I'm like, yeah, because you're not putting in any effort. That's just what it is, because you don't really like her like that. That's just what I'm gathering from it. But Huda, she states that she actually likes Chris and she likes the pace that they're going at. I said, do you really like the pace? Because I don't know. Something about it is giving me, you want it to speed up a little bit. And the way she's acting, it is making me think that she actually likes him now. I was questioning it before, but she's moving back to the Huda way. The way she acts whenever she likes somebody. But she actually took a different approach later on. We'll get to it, though. But Andreina, she and Pepe go to talk. This was crazy to me. I was shocked. She talks to him about how she hasn't really talked to Bryan at all today. And she's like, I feel like something's missing between the two of us. I don't really know what it is. She was like, I just feel like it might be something with the challenge. So he ends up asking, like, have you spoken to him about it? And she's like, no, because, I mean, I essentially want to know what you're feeling about us possibly exploring a connection. Pepe shut her ass down. I was like, what? Because I thought the way his heart rate beat up and the way hers did and the way they was kissing each other, I thought there might have been something there. But he shut her ass down and I was like, really? And he was like, he just wants to see it through with Gracyn. I said, really? Okay. Okay. I mean, I got to respect it because at least he didn't lead her on. But I'm like, really? I guess some boring conversations are actually doing something for him, but I guess. But Andreina, she ends up telling us essentially, I feel like I'm a little bit offended because, like, it's been a while since I've been friend zoned, and I think he just did that to me. I was like, damn, Andreina, what you gonna do now? What you gonna do now? Because Bryan trying to get to know Jaden, and I think he might be successful with pulling her from Austin. But Zach and Olandria, she looked like a life-size Barbie doll. Like, her body is perfect. When I tell you it's perfect, it looks like it was created. Like, there's no work done to it besides her actually. You could tell she keeps her body well. Like, you can tell she works out. She is like a life-size Barbie doll. But they head off to the dock. And she's talking about essentially when she was going home and how she was feeling about it. And he ends up asking her, like, did you feel like you might have what went wrong with you and Taylor with that decision, essentially? And she was like, I mean, I know I didn't do anything wrong, but sometimes men essentially just don't feel like what I'm doing, or at least what we as women are doing when we provide love, they just don't feel fulfilled by it. Yes, that can be true, but in your situation, he just didn't like you. Like, that's just really all it comes down to. But she says essentially she's going to continue to explore, leave Taylor out of that exploration. But Zach pretty much states like all it takes is really one conversation to switch people's mindset. But he then talks about how he and Amaya haven't really spoken today, but hopefully tomorrow he'll feel different. That's what I'm assuming. Because when he talks, I talk fast, but he talk fast as fuck. And his accent is so thick, it's hard to understand. I had the subtitles on and I still couldn't keep up. But he then says like his past relationships didn't work. And I'm assuming it's because past girls essentially like to cause scenes, because that's essentially what he was getting at. And he's the type of person that want to handle it at home. Like, if we're going to have an issue, let's not do it in public. Let's do it at home. I completely relate. I'm that type of person. I can't stand people making a scene in public. I get embarrassed easily too. So people acting a fool in public. I'm not that type of person. Like if something happens that kind of pisses me off in public, I'm not gonna act a fool. If I do, it's got to be different levels. And the one time I did was probably a year and a half ago at Wingstop. I ordered online and I got there like 2 or 3 hours. Well, actually, I got there in maybe 30 minutes after, and they was busy on a Friday, so I was not tripping. But as an hour went by, and I literally already checked in with them, and I was like, "Is my order back there?" And they was like, "Yeah, it's gonna come out in 30 minutes." Hour went by, I kept going back. They finally told me like, "Hey, what's your number? Like, what's your number?" I went and looked, and they said it's not even here. I said, "So y'all sat here and had me sitting here for an hour talking about my shit was back there cooking?" I went off, and I got me a free meal for it. But that's one of very few times where I will actually show my ass in public. I rarely will, but I feel him on that. But essentially, Olandria, she agrees. She feels the same way. Like she feels like conversations like that should be had at home. Like check it at home. And he starts complimenting her on how beautiful she is and how he's interested in her. And she ends up stating, essentially, we need to continue to see where this goes. I'm like, good. But he then mentions the challenge and how he'd been dying to kiss her for a minute. She's giddy about it. I loved it. But Taylor and Clarke, they're having a conversation, and she ends up asking him if he thinks that she should feel some type of way about the challenge. I'm like, so you really do feel some type of way about it. But he then says, like, do you think Olandria crossed the line? I can't stand. That's one of my biggest pet peeves. I can't stand when somebody asks you a question and you answer the question with a question. Don't do that shit with me. If I ask you a question, answer the question. Answer it. If you then want to ask me a question after you've answered it, then you can do that. But she then tells him, answer it first. So he then says, yes. And she was like, okay, why? And he says, like, she didn't have to take me to the heart because it was disrespectful to you. And she then says, like, I mean, you didn't initiate it, so I can appreciate that. I said, so what's the point in you having this question? Like, I don't get it. But she then asked him, like, if he and Olandria plan to explore things. And he says, mm-hmm. Over it. Send him home. Now. But he then tells Clarke that she gives him a feeling that he's never experienced before. So why are you still open to exploring Olandria? Like, shut up. But she then says, I mean, I hope that you mean that you can be yourself, essentially. That's what you mean. But she tells us that she's not used to these love triangles. It's weird because she don't do that shit in the real world. They end up pet kissing. No kissing. Like, come on, nigga. Come on. But Chelley and Cierra, they're talking about Chelley and Ace. Chelley pretty much tells Cierra, like, I slept on the Huda thing. Like, I'm curious to see what she has to say. I feel like we can be cordial. We not going to be best friends. We're probably not going to be best friends. And that's not a problem, Huda people. Like, they don't have to be friends. They don't. Especially considering how Huda moved. Like, let's keep it all the way above. But she says essentially, like, I mean, I still love her, though. I don't hate her, but I still love her. It's just like, I just know who you are. You're not the type of friend that I need in my life. And it explains why Huda only got 2 friends. It's like y'all completely forget everything Huda's done. And she's even told on herself. Like, she says she only got 2 close friends. What does that tell you? And the way she moves on the show, it literally explains why. But Cierra pretty much tells her, like, yeah, distance is healthy. Like, you need to be in your energy. Like, if you want to be in your positive energy, be in there. And you're entitled to that. And she is. And Sierra's like, yeah, I'm going to give her a chance. Well, I've given her chance after chance after chance. And she's essentially not my friend. Like Jamie That's Me said. And like Roxy said in their recaps yesterday. Y'all, and I think Tammy said it too. Y'all are the ones that wanted her to be here. And it's just like, I feel bad for Chelley. But then again, it's like, how much can I really feel bad? Y'all could have sent her ass home and we wouldn't be having these conversations. We wouldn't. But then again, she's bringing the drama, so we actually got something to talk about. But Huda and Chris, they're in the speakeasy. This is the last conversation of the day. And she's asking him about him and Chelley. And I'm like, why are you asking him about Chelley again? But he then says, like, essentially, I'm going to take a step back because I really fuck with you. And she was like, what? You do? She was so excited. So excited. Second choice. But he then says, like, I mean, I've never been raised to really chase and not get anything in return. He then says, like, with me not getting the energy back from Chelley is giving me time to actually devote this time towards this connection that me and Huda got going, and I want to take it more seriously. Again, she's a backup plan. But actually, we're going to get to it. I'm shocked. But they're cuddling. And she talks about, like, being cold or whatever. And he pretty much asked her, like, do you want my shirt? And she's like, I mean, you don't have to, but I mean, if you want to. And he's like, just say yes. You just said you was cold, and I'm pretty much trying to be a man, be a gentleman. I want to give you my shirt, essentially. And he was like, I'm asking to give it to you. And she's like, okay, sure. And he was like, you have a hard time. Well, she says that she has a hard time accepting things because she's never had a man take care of her. And he was like, so how do you expect to have a husband? Like, if you don't let the man take care of you, then how you, like, what you want me to do? She's like, I'm learning. He was like, well, you can't learn if you don't accept it. But she then tells him essentially, like, it's hard for me to be vulnerable because I'm always scared of getting hurt. Because I've never really had somebody that hasn't hurt me. Which, this is what I talk about. She needs to go to therapy. And she needs to iron out these issues. Because she's carrying all of that. Which then, like I said, I still feel like she don't have that self-love for herself that she needs to have, which is why she's always looking for it in men. So she's got to fix that first. But this conversation turned in a way where I was like, maybe Chris is good for her. Maybe. Because he handled her with care, which was quite interesting for me to actually react to. I was like, do I actually like this? Do I actually like this for them? But she ends up stating that, and she asked him if he's cheated. He says he did once. She asked, like, was it emotional? And he was like, yeah, it was. Well, no. She's like, did you fuck somebody? And he was like, no, it was emotional cheating. So she then tells us that she feels like Chris is, because they actually started talking about, like, other stuff, like, do you like texting? Do you like FaceTime? And that type of shit. So she then tells us that Chris is mature and he's different than most guys that she's actually spoken to, and she likes their pace. But she then asks him about his type. He says he don't really have one, but he always attracts women that are emotionally unstable. And she's like, do you think I am? He says, I don't know. Chris, you know. You know, because what you just said is true, because you got an emotionally unstable woman in your face. But they had like a little vibe going on, which was quite interesting. But they started tonguing each other down. I was like, Jesus Christ. That was a lie. The tongues were just tonguing. I was like, do we need the zoom in on that? Like that. They was tonguing each other down. Y'all gonna eat that up. I already know y'all are. I'm not voting for it. I'm not voting for it. But, I mean, good for them, I guess. But if y'all enjoyed the recap, thumbs up the video. Drop your comments down below. I might have another unpopular opinion. I mean, it's me, though. My opinions are formed up here, not on the internet. Some people's are, but mine aren't. But, yeah, I'm going to see y'all tomorrow. Peace.